What if the money in your bank account had an expiration date you didn't know about? A secret financial reset is being planned that would use your savings to erase $37 trillion of government debt. The plan is already in motion, and you are standing on the battlefield. A declaration of war. The money in your bank account is not what you think it is. It's a weapon in a war you don't even know is happening. And according to one of Vladimir Putin's top advisors, the United States is about to pull the trigger on a plan to reprogram it all, erasing its $37 trillion debt and leaving the rest of the world, and people like you, holding the bag. His name is Anton Kobiakov, a senior advisor to the Russian president for over a decade. His job is to craft Russia's message on the world stage, and his message was chillingly clear. He stated that the ultimate goal of the United States is to push the whole world into what he called a crypto cloud. Once your finances are connected to this new digital infrastructure, America will move its colossal national debt into assets like stablecoins. Then, with the flip of a switch, it will devalue them, wiping its own slate clean and leaving every other nation with worthless digital tokens. It would be a global economic reset, executed in silence. This might sound like a far-fetched conspiracy, but a more aggressive version of this story has already been whispered in the halls of American power. Michael Saylor, the billionaire chief executive officer of MicroStrategy, famously advised then-President Donald Trump to execute a similar financial coup. His advice was direct: dump all of the United States gold reserves and buy Bitcoin. Saylor argued this single move would demonetize the entire gold asset class, vaporizing the reserves of enemy nations. America's assets would soar, and the nation would control the entire global financial system. When a rival superpower makes a claim this specific, the world is forced to listen. It suggests this isn't a new strategy at all, but rather the perfection of a very old technique. So, is this just geopolitical posturing, or are you witnessing the opening moves of the largest financial sleight of hand in history? The oldest trick in the book. Could a government really just print its way out of debt? It sounds like a childish fantasy, a magic trick that couldn't possibly work in the real world. But for centuries, governments have used this simple, devastating trick to manage their obligations, making the money they owe you worth less than the money you lent them. This is the oldest trick in the Book of Empire, and the United States has perfected it into an art form. The mechanism is as simple as it is brilliant. Imagine the entire economic value of the world is a single $100 bill, and a government borrows it from you. To repay it honestly would require discipline. But the issuer of the world's reserve currency has a special power. Instead of earning the money back, it can simply create a new $100 bill out of thin air. Suddenly, the world's money supply has doubled. When the government hands back the $100 it borrowed, it appears to have honored its debt, but in reality, it has cheated you. Your returned money now buys only half of what it once did. The purchasing power has been diluted. This is not a hypothetical exercise. It is the fundamental story of your money. It's how the nation financed its recovery after the Second World War. It's how it navigated the crushing inflation of the 1970s. And it's precisely what happened after the recent pandemic, when trillions of new dollars flooded your bank account and the economy, driving the price of everything you buy through the roof. What most people fail to realize is that this isn't an accident, it is a feature of the design. So when Russia's advisor warns that the United States plans to use crypto to devalue its debt, he is not revealing a new plot. He is describing the next evolution of a very old game. The question is no longer if they will devalue the currency you hold, but how they will convince you to accept the new, less valuable version. The unnatural order. We're told that prices always go up. It's a fact of life, like gravity. But what if it's not a law of nature, but a deliberate choice? In a healthy world, technology should make everything you buy cheaper. This is the natural law of economics, deflation. But we do not live in a natural world. We live in a system that has been deliberately inverted to benefit its creators. If the amount of money in the world remained constant, the unstoppable march of human innovation would ensure that your cost of living would naturally decline over time. Each dollar in your savings would grow in power simply by holding it. This is the silent, benevolent force of progress rewarding your work and prudence. This natural order is the promise of technology, a world where your quality of life perpetually rises. But this is not the world we inhabit. That is because a powerful, unnatural force is constantly working against you, the ability of governments to create more money. When central banks inject new currency into the system, they suspend the laws of economic physics. The headlines we see celebrating that stocks or real estate have reached a new all-time high are not telling a story of prosperity, they are telling a story of deception. The reality is far more sobering. The assets are not gaining value. The dollar you use to measure them is simply losing its own. All that newly created money has to find a home, pouring into finite assets and driving up their prices. These assets only appear to go up forever because they are acting as life rafts, holding their purchasing power while the monetary ocean they float upon gets weaker. They are a hedge against a currency that is engineered to lose value. This managed decay has been the central project of modern economics, but the old tools are growing clumsy. To maintain control and scale this operation globally, a new kind of weapon is required. So, if the natural order of the universe is to make you richer, why have you been convinced to accept a system that does the exact opposite? Digital Trojan Horse. What if there was a plan to make every person on Earth voluntarily pay America's taxes without them ever knowing? It sounds like a paranoid fantasy. But the architecture for it is already built, and there's a good chance you, or someone you know, is already using it. It's called a stablecoin, and it's a digital Trojan horse for a new age of inflation. On the surface, stablecoins like Tether and USD Coin are a marvel. They offer the stability of the dollar with the speed of cryptocurrency, allowing anyone on Earth with a smartphone to transact freely, but their true genius lies in what backs them. To maintain their peg, these private companies hold massive reserves, and the primary asset in those reserves is short-term United States government debt. This is the secret to the entire operation. Every time a business in Argentina or a saver in Turkey holds a stablecoin, they are unknowingly helping to finance America's debt. They are not just holding a digital dollar, they are holding a digital IOU from the United States Treasury. This creates a constant, global demand for US debt from millions of people who have no idea they are funding it. Here is where the Trojan horse reveals its purpose. When the Federal Reserve inevitably devalues the dollar, the pain is no longer confined to America. It is exported instantly and silently through this vast network. The purchasing power of every digital dollar held in a wallet in Manila declines in lockstep with the dollars in a bank in Ohio. Inflation becomes a shared global tax, a burden distributed so widely that it becomes less politically toxic at home. The strategy is camouflaged as progress, but it creates a system where the world is voluntarily shackled to American monetary policy. It's a perfect crime, but how do you get everyone to sign up for it? The plan is simple. You have the most trusted corporations on Earth. Offer it to them as an upgrade. The corporate overlords. You would never accept a Fed coin from the government. The very idea of a central bank digital currency conjures images of total state surveillance and control over every single transaction you make. But what if that same digital leash was offered to you by Apple or Google, disguised as an upgrade? The architects of the new system know that force is clumsy, seduction is far more effective. The goal is to make the world want to adopt the new digital dollar. This is where the corporate overlords enter the stage. Instead of the government issuing its own digital currency, proposed regulations are being designed to grant special approval to tech firms to issue their own regulated dollar-backed stablecoins. Imagine an Apple coin seamlessly integrated into your iPhone or a Meta dollar flowing effortlessly through WhatsApp. These wouldn't feel like government tokens. They would be branded as innovative products, wrapped in the sleek, user-friendly packaging you already trust. This is a masterstroke of political engineering. It grants the government all the benefits of a CBDC without any of the branding drawbacks. It's the illusion of a private system, when in reality, it is a public-private surveillance partnership on a global scale. The tech giants are willing participants, eager to become the new gatekeepers of your money. For them, it represents the final frontier of user integration. For the government, it is the ultimate outsourcing project. But this elaborate plan has not gone unnoticed. The rest of the world sees the trap being set. This velvet cage is being built right now, designed for your convenience. So, when the world's biggest companies ask you to adopt their new dollar, who are you really making a deal with? The global rebellion. In a world of digital finance, who would be foolish enough to bet on a shiny yellow rock? It sounds like an ancient superstition. But it turns out, the world's most powerful nations are doing just that, orchestrating a rebellion against the coming digital system by stockpiling an ancient analog asset, gold. For the past several years, a historic amount of physical gold has been siphoned out of Western vaults and is now flowing eastward. Central banks, led by China, Russia, and India, are buying the precious metal at a feverish, unprecedented pace. This is the largest movement of gold between nations in over half a century, a monumental shift in the tectonic plates of global finance. This is not the behavior of countries that are confident in the future of the dollar. It is the behavior of nations preparing for that system to come apart. This global gold rush is a clear and unambiguous vote of no confidence. It is a calculated act of de-dollarization, an attempt to build a firewall against the fiscal policies of the United States. While America plans to export its inflation digitally, these nations are building a fortress out of a physical, tangible asset that cannot be printed into oblivion. They are trading their paper claims on American debt for an asset that has been a universal store of value for 5,000 years. They are choosing the certainty of a metal held in their own vaults over the promises of a government on the other side of the world. By accumulating vast reserves of gold, these nations are preparing for a future where the dollar is no longer the undisputed king. This frantic accumulation is a profound statement of distrust. To understand why the world is so suspicious, you have to look back to a single, seismic event, a moment when America made a solemn promise to the world and then simply broke it. What could have been so bad that no one ever forgot it? The broken promise. Imagine the world's most powerful nation making a promise, engraving it in metal, and then simply turning to the rest of the world and saying, "Just kidding." It sounds like an impossible betrayal, but it's exactly what happened in 1971, and it is the ghost that haunts the entire global financial system. For a quarter of a century after the Second World War, the world operated on the Bretton Woods Agreement. The United States dollar was the world's reserve currency, and its value was officially pegged to gold at $35 per ounce. Any foreign central bank holding your dollars could, at any time, exchange them for physical gold. This promise was the bedrock of global finance. The dollar was not just paper, it was a receipt for a specific weight of the world's most trusted asset. But by the late 1960s, the United States was printing far more dollars than it had gold to back them. Nations like France began to call America's bluff, sending warships to repatriate their gold. A slow run on Fort Knox had begun. Faced with a choice between fiscal discipline and default, the United States chose a third option. On August 15, 1971, President Richard Nixon announced he was temporarily closing the gold window. In an instant, the link was severed. The temporary suspension became permanent. This was the ultimate rug pull, the original sin of the modern financial system. The dollar, and by extension all world currencies, were now backed by nothing more than faith in the government that issued them. This single act proved that the United States will always prioritize its own interests. It is the deep, foundational reason why a new Trust Us digital token will not work. If America broke its analog promise, why would any nation accept a new digital one? This historical betrayal is the fuel for the current global rebellion. The nuclear option. What if the United States just decided to financially obliterate its enemies overnight? Sell all its gold, buy all the Bitcoin. It sounds like the plot of a bad action movie, a plan so ridiculously aggressive it could never happen. But it was seriously proposed at the highest levels of the American government. The man was Michael Saylor, and his advice to the Trump administration was a financial declaration of war. He argued that the United States should liquidate its entire 8,100 tons of gold reserves and use the hundreds of billions of dollars to acquire a strategic position in Bitcoin. This was not a hedge. It was a calculated act of economic warfare. The first effect would be catastrophic for the global gold market. The sudden dumping of the world's largest gold holding would trigger a price collapse. The very asset that nations like China and Russia had been accumulating as a shield would be rendered nearly worthless overnight. Their central bank balance sheets would be vaporized. The second effect would be just as dramatic. As the gold market crumbled, the hundreds of billions flowing into Bitcoin would ignite a historic rally. The United States would become the dominant holder of the world's premier digital asset. As Bitcoin's value soared, America's balance sheet would be recapitalized. The $37 trillion debt problem wouldn't just be solved, it would be rendered insignificant. In a single stroke, the United States would secure its financial supremacy for the next century. It was the ultimate shock-and-awe financial strategy. But it was also too loud, too overt, and too dangerous. The global fallout would be immense. It revealed the ruthless logic of the new economic battlefield, but the official plan required a far quieter approach. So, if the public plan is a smokescreen, what is the real one? The ghost in the machine. Could the government really build a multi-trillion-dollar strategic reserve right under our noses without spending a single taxpayer dollar? The idea is absurd. Yet the perfect ghost operation is already underway, carried out in plain sight by the private sector, and designed to give the US government total control when the time is right. Think of a company like MicroStrategy. To you, it's a software business. But to a geopolitical strategist, it is a publicly traded Bitcoin proxy, a corporate vehicle whose sole purpose is to accumulate the asset. This is the key to the backdoor strategy. Why would the government risk global outcry when it can simply let corporations do the heavy lifting first? These companies take on all the initial risk. They build the infrastructure and slowly drain the available supply from the market. They are, whether intentionally or not, building America's strategic digital reserve for it. The operation is perfectly deniable. It's not a central bank operation, it's just the free market at work. This approach is a classic page from the American playbook. Innovation begins in the private sector, but when an industry becomes too important to national security, it is absorbed into the national interest. The government has a history of taking strategic stakes in vital companies, as it recently did with semiconductor firms like Intel. The precedent is set. The final move will not be a shocking market purchase. It will be a quiet announcement that the government is taking a stake in one of these proxies, all in the name of protecting a vital piece of the new financial infrastructure. It is a far more elegant and politically palatable path to the same destination. This isn't just a theory, this is the final act in a carefully planned economic drama. So if the reset is inevitable, what does the final move on the chessboard look like? The inevitable checkmate. After all this, you might still think it's too big, too complex to ever happen. But what if the game is already over, and you just haven't realized it? The $37 trillion debt is not a problem to be solved, it is a trigger for a global monetary reset. The United States is positioning its pieces for checkmate. Each strategy is a different front in the same silent war. The stablecoin is the infiltration unit to export inflation. The corporate giants are the plausible deniability, offering you the system as an upgrade. And the private proxies are the ghost fleet, building a strategic reserve under the cover of the free market. These are not separate plans, they are parallel paths leading to the same destination, a new financial world order where the United States maintains its supremacy. The Russian advisor who fired the first warning shot was correct. The United States has been actively building the architecture for this reset for years. This is not a conspiracy theory, it is a strategic analysis of observable events. It is the logical conclusion for a nation facing an insurmountable debt, armed with control of the world's reserve currency. The old system is crumbling. It must be replaced, and the nation that designs the replacement will write the rules for the next century. This isn't just about the future of the dollar, it's about the future of control. The final move isn't about a global reset, it's about a personal one. A world where your money isn't truly yours, but a digital token that can be managed, tracked, and devalued on a whim. The battlefield isn't in some distant country, it's on your phone, in your bank account, and in the choices you're about to be forced to make. The real question isn't whether the reset is coming. It's what will be left of your freedom when it arrives. If you want to stay ahead of this reset, you need to understand the battlefield. Like this video to show you're paying attention, and subscribe for your next briefing. The game is just getting started.